the greatest power of influence, the greatest power of influence that you possess is love. Not the feeling of love, the action of love. I found as a counselor that if I could get people focused on love, I just want to tell you a story. A lady came to my office one time, had 3 kids. Husband traveled all the time. He was a truck driver, and so he was on the road all the time. He was never at home, and the lady was really struggling. She came to me for counseling, not marriage counseling. He was gone, and she wasn't coming to me for marriage counseling because her truck driver husband had just married a truck driver, left her and married a truck driver woman who he had met at a truck stop. And I'll just tell you, this lady was, you want to see angry? Dude, it just dripped off of her. I mean, when she walked in, there was such a strong hurting sense of being betrayed and mad. And I'm telling you something, when you're dealing with a person in a situation this lady was in, all she wanted was for him to pay in pain, to pay in money for his life, to, you know, she would have just been, she didn't want him run over by a bus. She wanted him to have a slow, painful death. I mean, this lady, it was that kind of anger. And she would come and you know, sometimes I would counsel people and they were in such bad shape emotionally that we could hardly ever get any counseling done. She would walk into my office and she'd sit down and she would just boo-hoo for an hour. I mean, just crying. And most of the time I couldn't even understand what she was trying to say. But for weeks, all I could get out of her was how bad she wanted him to pay. And when he would call to talk to the kids, she wouldn't let him talk to the kids, and she was always telling the kids how terrible he was, and it just went on and on and on, and she just believed in her mind that she would just feel better if something awful would happen to him. And I came at her from a whole different point of view. So what if you start loving him? Can you imagine the response I got with that, right? What if you start loving him? The best way you can hurt your ex is to love him. Because the madder you get and the most rude you are and everything else, the more he just sits there and goes, you know, boy, did I make the right decision. You were just making me feel so good about what I did. So I started talking to this lady about forgiveness, and I started talking about loving him. I started talking about letting him talk to the kids, and even talking to the kids about what a nice man he is and a dad. And there came a point where she got a little bit softer and a little bit softer and a little bit softer, and she started being in a better mood when she came to counseling, and you could tell that the stress just went away, and she was feeling better about life, and she was looking prettier and cleaning up better and all of that other kind of stuff that went when you feel good in life. And it even came to the point where her ex wanted to drop the truck driver lady and come back, because this was not only the lady that he'd fallen in love with in the first place, she was better than she'd ever been. Now, they didn't, and I told her that was wrong and that he's remarried. But he was in a whole lot more pain over leaving her at that point than he was when she was mad at him. Look, love changes things. You got people at the office that you don't get along with. Look, don't argue with them. Love them. Respect them. Care about them. Go out of your way to do things for them that nobody else would. And what happens is you know, the Bible says for us to love and pray for our enemies, because it's like heaping hot coals in their laps. Now, that's not the reason that you should be doing it. But what happens is it changes people so much. It changes people so much. And it's important that you teach that kind of love to your children. It's important that you teach that kind of love to your children. You've got to realize that love really does change everything. It may not always change the other person, but it will always change you. This lady looked like a different lady because she was learning what love was about and how to give love, even for people that had hurt her terribly. And